Our next keynote speaker has served in 3 presidential administrations in the United States Department of the Interior. In January, she was named Director of the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management. Please welcome Liz Klein.
Hello, hello, hello. Get myself situated, my emotional support water bottle, and importantly, my remarks. So good to see you all. Thank you for being here. Thank you to Adam Stern and the Offshore Wind California for inviting me to join you today. I am Liz Klein, Director of the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management. It's a relatively new role for me. I've only been in this spot for a couple of months, but it is accurate to say that this is my 3rd tour of duty at the Department of the Interior, having served in the Clinton and Obama administrations. And I actually had the privilege during the Obama administration to work quite a bit on building our renewable energy programs at the department, both onshore and offshore, and I had the opportunity to work with just some amazing public servants here in the state of California who had incredible vision about the prospects for renewable energy serving the needs of California's communities. And at that time, though, it did seem like offshore wind seemed a very far off, bit of a fantasy in a way, which is why I'm so excited to be here today. In part to celebrate the tremendous progress that's been made, but also to talk about the very realistic future for offshore wind in the years to come. Since day one of this administration, President Biden has made clear that we need to tackle the climate crisis with the urgency that science demands. And he believes strongly, as do I, that we can do that in a way that builds a clean energy economy that benefits all Americans with lower costs for families and good paying jobs for workers. Certainly this vision is reflected in 2 historic pieces of legislation that you may have heard every administration official talk about, which is the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act. Both of those are really aimed squarely at ensuring that the U.S., powered by American workers, remains a global leader in clean energy technology, manufacturing, and innovation, while supporting more climate resilient communities. And I know that every single person in this audience can be a part of that amazing work and the future ahead of us. For the Department of the Interior, and more specifically BOEM, BOEM is playing a central role in the clean energy transition by facilitating offshore renewable energy production. BOEM's guiding light in this effort is the goal to deploy 30 gigawatts of offshore wind by 2030 and 15 gigawatts of floating offshore wind by 2035, all while creating good-paying jobs, bolstering energy security, and ensuring all communities have access to economic opportunities. So all of this means I am very proud to lead BOEM at this pivotal moment. It's actually, I thought I'd take a moment to note that it's Public Service Recognition Week, and I wanted to shine a special light on the amazing employees at BOEM. I see some of them in the audience, and you'll hear from Doug Boren, one of those amazing employees, shortly. And all the amazing employees across the federal government, across state governments, across tribal governments who are working so hard every day. Secretary Haaland sent a note on the subject last week that said, each of us shows up to work knowing that there are problems in the world we must fix and that we have the power to make a difference in the lives of our neighbor and those historically pushed to the margins. So BOEM is certainly showing up every day to advance our nation's clean energy economy in service to the American people, and this is where I get to brag about them because I've only been here a couple months, but in the past 2 years, the fine working people at BOEM have approved the nation's first 2 commercial-scale offshore wind projects on the Outer Continental Shelf, kicked off the environmental review of 10 additional projects, and stay tuned for news on some of those in the coming weeks. We'll have milestones that we'll reach. We held 3 lease sales last year offshore New York and New Jersey, the Carolinas, and California. And we're taking the next steps to bring offshore energy to more places on the East Coast, the West Coast, and even the Gulf of Mexico and Puerto Rico. As we undertake these efforts, the partnerships we have with states are really critically important. Obviously, states play a crucial role in energy generation and distribution, and many coastal states like California have been leading the way in setting their own offshore wind goals, along with creating the economic opportunities that will support this growing industry. So at BOEM, we really are very excited about this partnership with the state of California, and we've made real progress. This past December, you'll hear a lot about this, you've heard a lot about this, the first ever offshore wind lease sale off the Pacific coast for areas off Central and Northern California. This sale was the result of just years of careful planning with various tribal, federal, state, and local partners. And the 5 lease areas ultimately sold off Humboldt and Morro Bay have the potential to power more than 1.5 million homes. And that lease sale off the coast of California was our first to support floating offshore wind, but we are surely working hard to make sure it won't be our last. We know that with 2/3 of the nation's offshore wind resources in deep waters, floating wind can help us reach areas once thought unattainable, especially in the Pacific. So last fall, the Department of the Interior and the Department of Energy joined together to announce an exciting new set of floating wind goals, including the Floating Offshore Wind Shot, which will grow clean energy capacity and drive U.S. leadership in floating wind design, development, and manufacturing. Certainly, while other countries may be further along in fixed offshore wind technology, the U.S. has a real opportunity to be the global leader in floating offshore wind, and the Pacific can help lead the way. For President Biden, he says this a lot, it's no secret that creating good-paying union jobs is a real centerpiece of his administration, and the offshore wind industry can serve as an engine for those economic opportunities. California lease sale is a great example of this. It's a great example of the type of ingenuity that our BOEM folks can use to bring statutory and regulatory authority in a way that's new and innovative. We included in that sale a 20% credit for bidders that agreed to contribute to programs or initiatives that support floating offshore wind workforce training programs, development of domestic supply chain for floating offshore wind, or both. This credit alone resulted in over $110 million in investments. The sale also offered, importantly, a 5% credit to bidders who committed to entering community benefit agreements, which is something that we are hearing across our coastlines, the importance of supporting communities as we engage in this work. And we are certainly looking forward to continuing to working with those developers and communities to make sure that those benefit agreements become a reality. We've also included lease stipulations to encourage project labor agreements to ensure workers benefit from good-paying union jobs, and we included lease stipulations that encourage lessees to engage with tribes, ocean users, and local communities that may be affected by lease activities. These credits and lease stipulations, again, demonstrate BOEM's commitment to responsibly grow the offshore wind industry while benefiting communities. So in my short time at BOEM, I have had the opportunity to meet with lots of people. My days are packed, meeting with all sorts of people, tribes, ocean users, stakeholders regarding offshore wind issues. And the fact that these projects are no longer a far-off idea, but a reality. I heard some of Senator Laird's remarks about what that means for communities as they see these projects start to become real for them. And for some communities, these offshore wind development raises a range of concerns. What are the impacts to marine mammals? Will these projects impede my ability to fish, to feed my family, to make a living? How will these projects impact the seafloor? What will be the impact to birds? Are they a safety threat? These are all important questions, and all of us in this room must really commit to working hard every day to address them and find solutions when we identify impacts that may result from these projects. For me, certainly, as I hear these questions, I do always start with the why. Since the beginning of the administration, the president has also made clear that the climate crisis is real and the federal government has an obligation to do something about it. We know that climate change is already having a profound impact on our ocean and the incredible resources that exist within it. But we also know that the ocean has the potential to advance a powerful set of solutions to address the climate crisis. And of course, offshore wind is really one of those powerful tools. But we must move forward in this work, as the recently released White House Ocean Climate Action Plan directs us, with a commitment to being responsible stewards of a healthy and sustainable ocean, advancing environmental justice, engaging with communities, with tribal nations, acting based on evidence, science, and indigenous knowledge, and integrating and coordinating actions across the federal government. So every day at BOEM, we are doing the hard work of trying to find balance, balancing the need to move forward with urgency to address the climate crisis, against the equally important need of ensuring that the actions we take are avoiding, minimizing, and mitigating any of the impacts of our actions to the greatest extent possible. I continue to believe, with a lot of hope and optimism, that building a clean energy economy can help turn historically marginalized or overburdened communities into healthy, thriving places to live and work. And as we move forward with this work, we're thinking about the communities who disproportionately bear the burdens of climate change and pollution, as well as those communities who rely on the ocean for their livelihoods and cultural identity. We're working hard at BOEM to build trust and engage respectfully with tribal governments, and we recognize the incredible contributions that our nation's fishing communities have made and continue to make to feed our nation, including certainly here on the Pacific coast. We remain committed to working with the fishing community throughout all of our processes, from the very beginning before we're even identifying potential areas for lease, through project development and the permitting processes. We certainly value the input we receive from fishing communities directly, but also from important organizations like the Pacific Fishery Management Council. And we're just, throughout the process, actively seeking public feedback. I would note that BOEM also has a really robust Office of Environmental Programs. We have a number of environmental studies underway that are going to be truly important to this work as we move forward. These studies will help us understand the potential effects of offshore wind, help answer some of those questions that communities are bringing to us, and help us move forward in identifying how we might avoid, minimize, and then mitigate any impacts that we identify. And I've said this before in other speeches. Maybe some of you caught me at IPF, and you'll probably hear me say it again. It's an important point, I think, to note that we know that there are many who ultimately, after all of this engagement, may not agree with the path that we ultimately choose. But I can pledge to you and to all of those communities that all of the input we receive is heard and it's used. It's used to try and strike that important balance as we work to achieve our offshore wind goals. So I'm incredibly proud of the progress that BOEM has made in these past 2 years to advance the administration's clean energy agenda, and I remain aggressively optimistic that we can reach the goals that have been set for us. And of course, the federal government can't do this alone, but we fortunately we have state partners like California that are taking the initiative. And there's no doubt that California is committed to going big on offshore wind, and the continued leadership by the state and by all of you and ambitious clean energy goals are really crucial to developing this emergent industry. So on behalf of the administration, the Interior Department, and BOEM, we're looking forward to continuing to work with all of you to make California's and the nation's clean energy goals a reality. Thank you so much for being here.